Hello everybody, welcome to the latest episode of FPL Affairs, the podcast that discusses our 9-month-long love affair with FPL, including the ins and outs that keep us awake at night. In this latest video, we check up on our teams from Gameweek 14, see how they're doing from the Tuesday and Wednesday fixtures, discuss the key talking points, and preview Gameweek 15 so far. Do we have any transfers in mind? Let's see. Anyway, let's get cracking.
And there's Mo Salah. There goes Haaland. He's on his way again. He's hungry. He's scored. Ice cold precision from Palmer. Oh, Saka! That is a diamond of a goal.
Hello, welcome to this latest video with me, Matt, aka the veteran, and my co-host as usual, Jack, the master. How are you?
Yeah, good mate. You?
Not too bad. Interesting results, and also for those of you watching, we are recording this on Thursday afternoon, so in advance of the Thursday evening fixtures of the Game Week 14 round, but after the Tuesday and Wednesday ones, which not too convinced you would have enjoyed yourself last night.
Well, it's nothing that wasn't expected, apart from Jack Stevens. I mean, what is he doing? Getting sent off in the basically to summarise, you're club captain, you're a centre back, you're 3-1 down at home to Chelsea, you're bottom of the Premier League, and you get sent off for pulling someone's hair in the opposition box. I mean, it's just madness. It's just absolute madness. Not that, we were going to come back from 3-1 down at the time anyway, but you like to think that it might not have ended sort of 5. But, it actually didn't suit Palmer owners because, me being one of them, first of all, we had, which I'm sure we'll talk about with teams at the moment, but the game was much more end-to-end with 11v11, because when Chelsea were 3-1 up and Southampton went down to 10 men, Chelsea very much took their foot off the gas, especially in the second half when they came out the tunnel. They had one good chance right at the start of the second half, which would have been a Palmer assist. But then after that, not a lot happened for 10-15 minutes. Chelsea really didn't sort of step on us, which was nice, but yeah, it was a much more open game, 11v11.
It always sometimes happens that with...
It's not through us sitting back. It's not like we parked the bus and thought, do you know what I mean? But Chelsea just very much took their foot off the gas for 15-20 minutes.
When on the opening game of the season, when Newcastle hosted Southampton, and we had Cher sent off, from that point, it was just like, right, okay, we'll play on the counter.
Well,
there you go.
we'd already given you a goal, hadn't we? We'd already given you a goal, and you were 1-0 up, and then obviously you went down to 10, which basically you played a back 10, and Southampton being rubbish at scoring anyway, it was just one of those games. But anyway, not great. You had a much better night.
Right. Yeah, it was an entertaining watch. Certainly one of the best, if not the best performance we've had this season. First half, Liverpool, I can't even remember if they even mentioned Salah in the whole of that entire first half. But then when the commentators tell you the stat at half time that Liverpool's last 19 goals, 16 of them were scored in the second half, makes you kind of think, right, maybe I'll take that first half with a teeny pinch of salt.
Yeah.
And see what happens. But we got a point from it. So we just need to perform like that against the lesser teams.
Yeah, definitely.
Because at home we've beaten Arsenal, beaten Chelsea, although that was in the Cup, drew with Man City and drew with you. But then at the same time we've lost at home to West Ham and lost at home to Brighton. So, anyway, right. Let's look at our teams to date. So this is as it stands from Tuesday games and Wednesday games.
Here we go.
Game week 15. We'll start off reviewing our game week 14 teams. As normal. Yours first. Talk us through what you've got so far.
Look at that. I assume that's pre-subs, or it might be post-subs, I don't know.
It's post substitutions.
For podcast listeners, Flecken 3, Hall 1 as an auto sub for the non-playing Gabriel. Mikalenko with 11, the legend. 8 Nuri with none for a change. Saka with 3, who was my transfer in this week for Mbermo. Salah with 18 as a vice-captain for Palmer with 14, who's my captain. Rodgers with 8, who I started, who I was smart enough to start. Everybody else benched him, but they're about to get him anyway. Smith Rowe's coming on for the non-playing Jackson, who was my other transfer for Erling Haaland. And Strand Larsen 2 and Wood 2. So, yeah, happy with Mikalenko. Sort of played both of them in the end. I had an option between Lewis Hall and Valfas, and again, I just played them playing each other and thought we'll see if either of them can get attacking returns. I didn't think either team would keep a clean sheet, being perfectly honest, and I was actually quite worried about my defence going into the game week with Gabriel against United, who have been on a bit of a vein of form and scoring goals. And then Mikalenko playing against Strand Larsen, who's my attacker. And obviously 8 Nuri in Wolves just will never keep a clean sheet. I know they did recently, but they're just not. That was against Southampton, so that doesn't count really. Flecken with 3, which was a bit of a surprise considering the goals that they shipped, but he must have stopped a few. Rodgers with 8, he had an assist taken away from him as well, rightly so, I think. But yeah, it could have been more. Saka was disappointing. For Arsenal to score from 2 corners and for him to not get anything was quite disappointing. I think that's, especially in that Arsenal team with them from set pieces, how good they are from set pieces, for them to score from 2 and him not get an assist was a bit disappointing. Obviously, you'll be able to qualify this a bit more. If I had my opportunity again, who I'd captain, I would I would keep it on Palmer because, and I watched the game last night and he hit the post and he could have had another 2 assists. Joe Lumley, for all of his faults in giving away a goal, he did keep 2 or 3 out. So I think it was the right decision looking at it on paper. Obviously, you posted the stat of Salah's record at St. James's Park not being very good, which was a very good stat. But the guy's just a joke. He's just an FPL joke this season. I think that's like 10 double-digit returns in however many games, 14 games. He is similar to Erling Haaland last season now. I think you just put your captaincy on him and leave it there, especially with the fixtures they've got coming up. Like I said, Palmer was disappointing. Watching it, he could have got more. Definitely could have at least got another goal. Definitely. The goal he did get, Sancho was warming up and then he came to go on and I thought, they're going to put João Felix in the 10 and take Palmer off and play Sancho out on the left, but they didn't, which was ideal and then in the next couple of minutes he stole a goal from Nkunku, who had already scored a brace that evening anyway, and obviously he posted that funny tweet about nicking it off him, but it was the easiest goal he'll score this season.
That was a funny tweet.
It was funny. Yeah, it was funny. It's good to know that we're all relying on him.
Yeah, for those of you that haven't seen it or haven't heard about it, Palmer tweeted and tagged in Nkunku and commented on basically saying, sorry for taking that goal, but my FPL owners needed it.
Which we did, because watching the game, obviously as a Saints fan, I was like, well, we've lost this game, so who cares? Because that was my stance before the game anyway. But I was a bit like, come on, it's 3-1. And to be honest with you, Noni Madueke was the play last night. And I said it to my dad before the game. We really struggle against pace. And I just wish I'd have thought about it. I'm not suggesting I'd have brought him in, but I did think he was going to be a good option last night. The annoyance, I obviously finally bit the bullet and got rid of Haaland for Nicholas Jackson. And in hindsight, again, it's a great move. It's a good move. It's a good idea. Chelsea scored 5 goals. It's just he decided to get benched. And I find that so odd because if you're going to bench Nick Jackson, tell him to go get booked at the weekend. Just tell him to get booked at the weekend. Do you know what I mean? If you're gonna rest him for Southampton, just tell him to get booked. And then because now he's going to come back, and that 4 yellow cards are still there, and he's had a rest. So we just as well have kicked the ball away on the weekend, got a yellow card, and then taken midweek off. Obviously it's unsportsmanship or whatever, but why would you bother? Just get booked and then rest. Because he could come back this weekend against Spurs, get booked, and then miss the next game. So I did think that was odd. I thought I was sort of like, if he's going to be rested, they're just waiting for him to get his yellow card. So I was annoyed about that. And then, sorry, I know this has been a bit of a long ramble. Strand Larson with 2, Chris Wood with 2. I read that Chris Wood had a 1-on-1 with the goalie early on in the game, so that's annoying. Strand Larson is just poor regardless. And I've got Smith Rowe tonight, who's hopefully going to do the business and get me up the rankings. But there's a lot tonight, isn't there?
So as it stands, you're on 62 points.
62.
Yeah, with Hall's 1 pointer. Going up. And from what I looked up, which 62 is your safety score?
Yeah. So I'm currently got a green arrow of 10,000 places into the top 200k. But people like João Pedro could kill me this season. Matoma could just destroy that. Obviously, there's the Tottenham lads. So we'll see how that goes. If Smith Rowe just gets a 2 and any of those players score, it'll probably be a red. So, I need something from Smith Rowe tonight if I'm going to maintain that green arrow. But it's still nice to see it, nevertheless. How did you get
on? There's your green arrow. Raya in goal, 6 point, clean sheet. Aït-Nouri with his delightful round 0. About Fass, that was very frustrating seeing him on the bench for Leicester.
Yeah.
Which means it was a relief when they conceded, when Leicester conceded, because then at least it meant that, well, if he would have started, it wouldn't have made much points difference. It wouldn't have been a clean sheet. And then Lewis Hall coming off the bench for Gabriel.
I thought that was annoying. Sorry to interrupt. I thought that was annoying, Gabriel not playing. Because obviously Arsenal kept a clean sheet. And Arteta gave nothing. No indication of that either. Not that I saw. But obviously he got hooked at half-time, but he didn't say anything afterwards, did he? Sorry, carry on.
Saka 3 points, same as you. 18 points from Salah, same as you. Captain to Palmer, same as you. For his 14. Rogers 18, not 18. Rogers was my auto sub for Nick Jackson not coming off the bench. So that's a nice tasty 8 points, which actually takes me provisionally from a red to a green. So as it stands at the moment, we'll look at the stats in a moment. I've got Semenyo playing tonight, which Bournemouth are quite good at home. Tottenham's defence isn't great. So now he's back from suspension. I'm kind of got my fingers and toes crossed that he plays and that he can get something from that game. This is 2 points and a reasonably nice 11 points from Isak. Could have been more.
Yeah.
Because he slipped Gordon through and Gordon missed a 1-on-1, I think. Unfortunately. So Isak would have gotten an assist there. Isak actually slipped the ball through for Lewis Hall at one point.
Yeah.
Lewis Hall could have got a goal. That would have been amazing celebrations.
Especially with the auto
And
subs.
yeah, and Isak also had a goal disallowed for offside. Very, very, very close call, but I think he knew it. You could tell from his reaction after he scored, and then the flag goes up afterwards. You could tell from it. But yeah,
There'd be a lot of managers annoyed that they didn't keep the faith with him midweek, because I think he got transferred out quite a bit based on his injury. And people wanted Nick Jackson, really. I think that was quite a popular move. So obviously kept the faith and reaped the rewards.
yeah. So as long as Rodgers and Semenyo can tick along, I'm hoping to ideally rotate those two and Wissa, really. Bearing in mind I've got Jackson, hopefully starting at the weekend. I'll probably play Wissa and Isak. We'll go through the teams after, but yeah, that's so as it stands. I'm on 64 points, 55 plus 9 off the bench. My safety score's 58, so I'm currently 6 points above it, which gives me a rise from 2.01 million to just under 1.8 at the moment. So we'll see what happens tonight, and if Semenyo can do something, who knows, that could go higher. It may not. We shall have to wait and see.
I like Semenyo for tonight. I'm jealous of that.
Well, I noticed on the app, the scout on the FPL app gave 5 players that had the potential to score big tonight ish, and Semenyo was one of those 5. So
what's he there? 5.1% owned around you. That's nice.
yeah,
That's nice. If he boots off, that'd be very nice.
yeah, fingers crossed, toes crossed. Get his laces through it, rocket it through that Tottenham defence.
Yeah.
But anyone looking at my team will notice that, yeah, I had the vice captaincy on Saka. That was possibly Newcastle goggles, possibly because Arsenal were at home and Saka's Hall at the weekend. But to
Well,
be
they had
honest,
their longest off, didn't they, as well, in between games? They had an extra day.
But to be honest, given the choice again, I'm not convinced I'm not going to be one of those saying, "Oh, I should have put it on Salah. I nearly put it on Salah." To be honest, I didn't. Really.
I never looked at Salah for captaincy this week. I mean, there was a moment, wasn't there, when there was being discussed whether Cole Palmer would be rested midweek because he doesn't play Europa League, and they, do you know what I mean, they don't like playing him.
Yeah.
But I thought there's no way he's going to take a benching. No way. And when we went down to 10 men and we were 3-1 down, I thought he'd get hooked at half time. It was obvious. Do you know what I mean? He looked like he was going to get hooked at half time. If you're going to rest him and hook him at half time there. But he played another 30 odd, sort of 20, 30 odd minutes and got his goal. So I was quite pleasantly surprised he didn't get hooked at half time.
Maybe had he have scored in the first half, he would have been hooked.
Yeah. I think if Enzo Maresca went up to him and went, "Right, you're coming off," I think he probably turned around and went, "No, I'm not. There's no way," because he was such a nice game for any Chelsea player.
Or he would have been like, "I haven't scored yet."
Yeah, let me score and then take me off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those. So, as the game week's gone so far, what have been your main takes from Tuesday and last night?
I think a couple of weeks ago when we were on here, we were talking about people being drawn in by the big premium midfielders such as Salah, Saka, Palmer.
Yeah.
And I was talking about maybe that was making people neglect players like Isak and Watkins and the sort of like premium forwards. And I do think Watkins is a bit of a mixed bag, but at the same time he has the capacity to to go and have a game like he did last night and get some points. So does Isak.
Yeah.
But there's just players like Cunha have now blanked 2 games in a row. João Pedro, everybody clamoured for Southampton, and he blanked. Like, forwards are just really hard to predict.
Yeah.
You got Isak, obviously last week got hooked after a few minutes because he was injured in a game that you'd have really wanted him in. But then, of course, he then goes and plays Liverpool, who are arguably, between them and Arsenal, the best defence in the league this season. And not Maresca, Arne Slot got that totally wrong. Resting Trent and playing Joe Gomez at right back and bringing Konza in at St James's Park was a silly move, in my opinion, in the title race. Maybe he thought he could get away with it because of the amount of points that they were clear, but I thought that showed an inexperience in a Premier League manager, in my opinion. But yeah, it's just hard. It's hard to gauge this year, because especially in the forward line, because we've had a spell of really good good performing budget forwards, like a Jimenez and a Cunha and a Chris Wood and a Visser. But I know Visser's only blanked once, you know what I mean? Same with Wood, but it's hard to predict forwards this year. The midfield is where it's at. I think people were starting to get impatient with Rodgers. So I think it's quite a timely return from him, because I think people were thinking about moving him on.
Yeah.
Man United, Bruno Fernandes played in the deeper role last night against Arsenal. And again, Ruben Amorim changed the 11 again. I think he's got like 4 teams there that he can play at the moment, and 5 different midfield combinations and all sorts. So I think I was right to say leave them, because I don't know who's going to play or how they're going to play. Arsenal were just a machine. They just, when Odegaard's back and they're back to full strength. Jurrien Timber's a shout. Now, he was a shout at the beginning of the season. I had an argument on the fantasy. I say an argument. It was my opinion versus his on the Facebook page pre-season that Timber would be first choice over Calafiori, and that was the case, because they did spend a lot of money on him last summer. So when everybody was like, Arsenal need to buy a left-back over the summer, they had already got one, and it was Jurrien Timber. Now, I know he can play anywhere, but in the first game of last season, he played left-back, and he is a very, very good defender. He isn't known for his attacking returns, and he's certainly not like a Trent or even an Nate Nuri. He doesn't, he's not going to bomb forward and overlap and cross balls into the box or what have you, but he will steadily tick along. And yes, Southampton are just rubbish, would be my other take. Just absolute rubbish, and they were rubbish before. I think Leicester could going into the relegation conversation. I think Leicester under Ruud van Nistelrooy are probably going to be very good going forward, but not very good defensively. Players like Cunha are now needing to be moved on, in my opinion. Same with Delap. Same with I think Chris Wood needs to go for me as well, because I think he's got some tough fixtures coming up. So a couple of weeks ago, it was get on a Wolves forward, get on a Fulham forward, get on Chris Wood, get on a Forest player and stuff like that. I think that's all gonna come to a grinding halt now, and we're gonna have to really pivot off those budget forwards. Maybe 2 other ones, maybe spend a bit more money, like on a Nicholas Jackson or a Dominic Solanke or an Isak or a Watkins. But I think my 3 things would be genuinely Southampton are rubbish. So if there are players playing Southampton, like Ollie Watkins, for example, this weekend, and obviously he's not necessarily got great fixtures afterwards, but I do like Villa's run. I don't think Villa's run is too bad. I think you could hold Watkins for a while. Basically my take would be, if they're playing Southampton, play them, especially if they're attackers and defenders, because we can't score or concede. Still, the other third thing is leave Man United alone. You genuinely don't know what they're going to do. And my other third thing is the premium defender conversation is back. We were getting away with players like Ait-Nouri and budget options earlier on this season when everybody wanted to have Haaland and Salah, and you had to have a few cheapos on the bench, like a Harwood-Bellis and a Fass, and like a Ait-Nouri and a Rico Lewis and a Mikalenko. Those cheap things. I think now we're in the nitty-gritty part of the season over the Christmas period. I think paying a premium for a Trent and a Van Dijk and a Gabriel and a Vardiol and like a Kanate, but obviously he's injured, or a Timber or a Saliba.
Yeah.
And same with the goalkeepers. I think it's well worth the money now to invest in premium defence. So those would be my three takes. What about you?
I would say I put this as an image on the thumbnail, on the cover, that opening slide of two players about rotation, and just be mindful of that rotation over the coming weeks, because this was the first game week that was midweek round of Premiership fixtures, and the amount of rotation amongst the squads that there was last night and Tuesday night, just I think really for me emphasised how much everyone's going to need to make sure you've got a playing bench, even if they are against your advice, the likes of Harwood-Bellis and Tyler Dibbling, as long as they are players that are on the pitch and getting the minutes, you're at least going to get someone coming off the bench that is playing.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be people that got unlucky with that as well, because Tyler Dibbling and Harwood-Bellis were both suspended last night.
Yeah.
So if you are a player that went there and obviously have a budget midfielder and a budget defender, then your two of your auto subs are already on zero. So there'll be people out there with both of them that need auto subs that haven't got them, which is just bad timing that they got suspended midweek.
So yeah, that's my first thing. Just make sure and use those transfers wisely. We'll get onto transfers when we look at our initial thoughts for game week 15.
We had that conversation a couple of episodes ago, though, didn't we? About coming into this busy Christmas fixture period and making sure you've got a good bench and rolling your transfers where you can, because things will happen, things will go wrong, and people will get injured. Like Gabriel might not play this weekend.
And feeding off what you just said with your three takes, and you mentioning about the premium defenders coming back, as well as them playing for half decent defences, those premium defenders, you're paying for the minutes as well. Because you can be confident that, Knox injuries aside, those premiums are going to be in that lineup basically every game, or pretty much every game.
Yeah.
And you can pretty confidently say that the reason Gabriel didn't play for Arsenal last night was not because Arteta decided to give him a rest.
No.
And rotate. It was obviously, I think, there was the Fabianski punching him in the head and the knock from the Champions League a week ago. So very much thought, let's just give him that extra time rather than it be, let's give someone else a turn. So, yeah, I think I'm on one thing now. All of it's related to rotation and having a strong bench.
Yeah, again, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. You need those bench options, like a Rodgers. People were probably thinking about taking money. I mean, I was. We spoke about it a couple of videos ago. Maybe just binning him off and taking him down to a non-playing player and having bench fodder. But it's just not the right time of the year to do that.
You mentioned actually about the premiums and Trent coming back, with Trent getting 2 assists last night, and I also put this on the front of the slide, was it's the Merseyside derby at the weekend,
Yeah.
and Everton beat Wolves 4-0. So what do we take any extra notice of Liverpool and Everton being mindful they're against each other at the weekend in the Merseyside derby, or what? What are your thoughts on that?
I think regardless of their results last night, obviously with Liverpool slipping up potentially on their title charge and drawing, and Everton romping at home to Wolves, regardless of that, it's a Merseyside derby and there's always more skin in the game. Everton are always bang up for it, as are Liverpool. But I don't read too much into that. I think Liverpool will just surpass them easily. And that's sad for Everton. But obviously, it's a bit like saying, I mean, Wolves beat Southampton. It's their only clean sheet of the season because Southampton are rubbish. Everton just beat Wolves and got a clean sheet because Wolves are also rubbish. So I mean, if that was like a Brighton, or if it was a Fulham, or even a Brentford, even like a Crystal Palace, who are down there at the moment, then I might have given that result a little bit more respect. But because it's Wolves, I almost sort of just discount it as, well, Everton are rubbish, but Wolves are just really rubbish.
And
And Liverpool are obviously unbelievable. They had Kwanzaa and Joe Gomez at right back and right side centre back last night. A bit of rotation in midfield as well. So, which I think, as I said earlier, you got wrong. But they'll be full strength on the weekend, and I don't think Everton will be able to cope. Certainly not defensively, and also they've been very poor going forward this year. Very low on goals.
yeah,
Up until then.
4-0 against Wolves. Everton scoring 4. To some degree, that says more about Wolves' defence than Everton's attack for me.
Yeah. You're so right, because they haven't scored at all, or hardly any.
Exactly.
Again, a lot of people got really unlucky going Calvert-Lewin when they did in game week 5 or 6 because of Everton's fixture run. And I thought about him on game week 6 wildcard. It was between him and Chris Wood, and obviously we spoke about that earlier. And I just backed the better team at the time, which was Forest versus Everton. But I could have easily landed on a Calvert-Lewin, and it'd just be nothing but frustration because you could never justify selling him because he's had good fixtures every week. But he's just been so poor, as have Everton been going forward. They were always going to get better defensively when Branthwaite and Mikalenko came back in.
Yeah.
Always. But they've still not looked that great. I mean, they were very poor on the weekend, weren't they?
And that's going back to game week 13, which we've already spoke about. So should we move on to game week 15 thoughts?
Yep.
Which is a little over a day away.
Yeah. Thick and fast.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got again game week 15, our nice little Merseyside derby. Badges in one corner and player rotation in the other.
That's a lovely slide.
Yes.
Very nice slide.
With a nice preview sliding up and then rising to the stars.
And the snowflakes are in there.
Yeah.
Christmas themed. No, there was talks about the Merseyside derby being called off based on weather. The forecast isn't looking great. I said to you, I think, before game week 14, that when I sold Haaland the money, I was hoping to maybe bring in Trent. And that's kind of where I'm at. Now, when you sell Haaland for Nick Jackson and Mbeumo for Salah, for Saka, like I did, I mean, I've got 4.9 million in the bank. So all of a sudden, the options are absolutely endless.
And you got one free transfer.
I've got one free transfer and nowhere to spend all this money. It's like when you get paid and you go into a shop and you're like that. I don't actually like anything now. So you got all the money and nowhere to spend it. But I think for me, I've got a few sort of players I'd like to sell. like Chris Wood, like Strand Larson. I mean, I could do a goalkeeper change in Flecken, but I don't really like wasting the transfer on a goalkeeper. I could sell Aït-Nouri because let's just face it, he's just rubbish. Wolves is just rubbish. But I'd like to see if they change manager and then maybe go back to a back three and put Aït-Nouri as their left wing back. Then I think he becomes a good option again. Mykolenko for me would be the one that I would transfer to Trent. Based on their fixtures just swing so poor now. They've got some really bad games coming up. So he needs to go for me. I think Fass on my bench. I think maybe Van Nistelrooy. I mean, he played Vestergaard. Connor Cody's come back in the last couple of games. It's clear that he fell out with, what's his name, Steve Cooper, that was there before because he's come straight back in, unless he was injured, of course. I don't particularly know. But so I'm quite happy to hold him. I think similar to Man United, Van Nistelrooy will just be sort of figuring out who his best players are, and I reckon he might get in there anyway. But yeah, Strand Larson, Chris Wood, Wout Fass probably is on the chopping block, but like I said, I quite like him. I reckon he'll end up staying. And then Mykolenko, Aït-Nouri, and obviously Smith Rowe's got Arsenal this weekend, so if I was to make a midfielder change, it would be there. My annoyance is I spoke on the last week's pod about Bournemouth, and I want a Bournemouth attacker. And I didn't do... My initial move was Haaland to Evan Nielsen, and then Mbeumo to Saka, and I just saw the Southampton fixture midweek, and I was just like, I can't not have Jackson. I didn't see, based on the fact that, that's why we spoke ages ago, we were both hoping he got booked at the weekend.
Yeah.
Or booked last night, and it was like, we've been talking about it for 4 or 5 game weeks now, like, we just need Jackson to get booked so he can become an option for us. Yeah. And then it got to the Southampton game, and he was not booked, and he was likely to play because he didn't get booked, and then he didn't start. So he's been a bit of a conundrum over the last 4 or 5 weeks, Nicholas Jackson. But I am happy I've got him for his run of games. But yeah, I think I could bring in João Pedro. I could bring in Ollie Watkins against Southampton. I could bring in an Isak. I do like Anthony Gordon as an option. We said that a couple of episodes ago. For maybe a Smith Rowe, I could do Mykolenko to Trent. I just want to find out on Gabriel first. Gabriel's sort of the kicker. I think if Gabriel doesn't play, then I'll have to make a defender transfer because my defence is just really weak. Aït-Nouri will have to play, and I'll have to do Mykolenko to Trent. And I might even take a hit. I know I always say don't take hits, but I might just have to improve my defence if Gabriel doesn't play. Or to be fair, I'd probably just play Lewis Hall.
Okay,
but yeah, my defence is looking poor.
I'll get your team up to just emphasise the strength in depth you have in defence.
Or lack of. I mean, I don't mind playing Aït-Nouri. I don't see them keeping a clean sheet, but West Ham aren't great defensively, so he's got the opportunity to get forward. Happy with that midfield. I'm very happy with that midfield. But at the moment, we spent the last few game weeks trying to get Salah in and trying to get Palmer in and trying to get Saka in. And obviously I tried to do all of that whilst having Haaland. And the problem with that is that now I've got all 3 of them in and I've got rid of Haaland. I've just got budget options everywhere. Just budget everywhere. So I've got Aït-Nouri, Lewis Hall, Smith Rowe, Wout Fass, Mykolenko, Strand Larson, Chris Wood, Morgan Rogers. It's just got budget players everywhere. So I'd like to do a Wood to an Isak or a Watkins, or same with Strand Larson. And I'd like to do a Aït-Nouri or a Mykolenko up to a Trent, or a Smith Rowe to a Gordon. But I just haven't got enough transfers. And now I'm sort of like stuck, really, wondering which sort of road to take this week. If Gabriel's injured, I'll have to do a defender move, I think. But that's not a bad back three. If Gabriel's fit, then it sort of frees me up to maybe do Strand Larson to somebody.
Yeah.
Or Chris Wood to somebody.
Yeah.
Or Smith Rowe to somebody. Because I'm a little bit worried about Rodgers' minutes against Southampton. Because I think, obviously, Unai Emery said about Buendia and him leaning on him to sort of play when Morgan Rodgers gets tired, and I think they've got Europe midweek next week and stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if Watkins is benched for Duran this weekend and Rodgers is benched for Buendia. But yeah, I was like a kid in a candy store. Really, I've got all this money, so many places to upgrade, and not entirely sure where to start. And like I said, I think if Gabriel's fit, then I'll probably do a Strand Larson to somebody better with better fixtures. I like Evan Nielsen, and they've got Ipswich away.
Do you want to read your team out and your bench?
Yep, bus team. So if I were to be hit by a bus, this would be my team. Flecken in goal. Don't care, he's probably not going to do anything. Ait-Nouri, Gabriel and Lewis Hall was a back three with a midfield of Salah, Palmer, Saka and Rodgers, and a front three of Strand Larson, Nicholas Jackson and Chris Wood. On the bench, it is Smith Rowe, Wout Faes and Vitaly Mykolenko. So that's me.
Right, I'll go down to mine. Yeah, so I'll read mine out. I've got Raya in goal. Fabianski's on the bench. Back three currently is Nathan Collins of Brentford, Ait-Nouri and Gabriel. Midfield fours, the same as yours. Mo Salah, who's got my captain's armband at the moment. Palmer Weiss, Saka and Rodgers. Front three of Isak, Wissa and Nicholas Jackson. On the bench, Semenyo, Hall and Faes.
Do you agree with that AI lineup?
Well, the AI actually had Semenyo starting in place of Rodgers. So that's my sort of conundrum-ish, really, is which one of those to start.
I wouldn't. I'd bench Visser for him, in my opinion. I know Brentford are at home. So just quickly, I know this is your team. I know I keep rambling. But I was listening to Andy from Let's Talk FPL today, and he was talking about Brentford and saying that they're better at home than they are away. Or it was either him or FPL Raptor, one of the two. Basically, it sort of debunked that myth, that it's almost a myth because of their fixtures that they've had. Like, their away fixtures have been so much harder than their home fixtures. So it's not a question of this is always good at home and poor away. It's just that they've had much easier fixtures at home than they have away. And so I think Newcastle, I think that's a tough fixture. I do. I don't see an out of form Brentford going and scoring many goals against Newcastle at home. Definitely not. Whereas I do see Semenyo going to Ipswich after a rest and just tearing them apart would be do you know what I mean? That's what I would say.
From a Newcastle perspective, I will say that Newcastle's record at Brentford is good. The last few years, we won there last season 4-2. We won there the season before that 2-1. I think the season before that we won there 2-0. So we've got a good record against them. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if both sides score, which is why I'm veering towards playing both Isak and Wissa. The view at the moment is from my attacking 8. I'm quite satisfied with my attacking 8.
Yeah.
And it'll be rotating Semenyo, Rodgers and Wissa depending on fixtures.
I've got to be honest. If I could swap teams with you, I would.
So the
It's a nice team.
conundrum I've got, like with you, is defensively this week, because I don't want to play Collins. I don't want to play him against Isak, no chance.
No.
I don't want to play Hall against Wissa if I'm going to play Wissa.
If you bench Vissa for if you bench Vissa for Semenyo and Collins for Hall, then that solves that conundrum.
Yeah, that does solve that aspect. But I am looking at a defensive move that would help over the coming weeks, and one that I'm considering is Joe Gomez.
Yeah,
That's not a definite. It's
a good budget. So, sorry, I'm just going to go. Joe Gomez is a good budget option into a Liverpool defence. Don't get me wrong, and I agree. However, he's almost an accident waiting to happen, because there will come a time where he plays Trent, Kwanzaa, Van Dijk, and Robertson. Like last night, Trent got a rest, but he's recently back from injury. Kwanzaa came in. Joe Gomez played at right back. For me, Joe Gomez has stolen a living at Liverpool anyway, because I don't particularly rate him. He's like third choice right back, fifth choice centre back, and fourth choice left back. But he tends to get in because Liverpool have injuries in those places. But I agree with you in the sense that it's a decent move, because again, you're getting into that Liverpool defence quite cheap. I liken it to like Rico Lewis, at Man City, where like it's a cheap way into that defence, but every week you're going to be checking the team sheet and be a bit like, is he starting or is he not starting? But who knows? He may be nailed. Like he might just make that centre back spot his own.
Because last night certainly gave the impression that if both Gomez and Kwanzaa are on the pitch at the same time, Kwanzaa's being put on the right and Gomez is playing centrally. So,
which didn't work, did it?
It's Kwanzaa looked very suspect. Gordon really got at him.
Again, though, I'm so confused why you would do that as Arne Slot. It baffles me. I don't think he put anywhere near enough respect on Newcastle. I mean, and Eddie Howe went there, and from what I saw, probably should have won the game. But Liverpool and Mo Salah and Trent had other ideas. But yeah, so who would you do Joe Gomez for?
Well, there's arguments for a number of them, really. Gabriel, I'm not going to take out, because certainly the impressions is that it's not a long-term thing. So if I can get away with having him, and then if he doesn't play, he's auto subbed out for a game, then fine. So his spot's safe, unless we get told he's going to be out for 2 months or something. Which, just for clarification, have no news at all on that. Hall's spot is safe. Fass at the moment is possibly safe, although I'm a bit wary, as he was benched the other night, is what's the security of his minutes in that Leicester backline, which then puts question marks over Collins and Ait-Nouri, because Ait-Nouri's attacking returns have been non-existent for the last however many weeks.
Yeah.
And it's either a 0 or a 1 pointer, because Wolves always, or more often than not, seem to concede more than one goal, which means he'll lose a point for that. And Brentford, again, they can't keep a clean sheet either.
I think if it was me, I'd do it for Ait-Nouri based on money.
That's what I'm thinking, because although Brentford have got tougher fixtures, they are a better defence than Wolves. Collins has got one of the most attacking return tally goal involvements out of all the defenders in the league. And Aït-Nouri's not
And he's still on
returning.
4 yellow
Plus,
cards.
yeah, and he's on 4 yellows, and Collins is cheaper.
Yeah, so if you were to do Aït-Nouri, I think Aït-Nouri will get booked this weekend. Just as a heads up against Jarrod Bowen, I think he's going to get booked this weekend. Would be my guess.
And then
And then it'd be
he'll be
suspended,
sold.
and then next week you're in a mess. I mean, if you did Aït-Nouri up to Joe Gomez, you'd obviously start him, and then you've just got a question between do you start Hall or Collins? And obviously with Isak, you're going to start Hall, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then you've just got the decision to make between Visser and Semenyo. I think that's quite straightforward, but that's just my personal opinion. I think Semenyo in for Visser and Hall in for Collins, and just back Newcastle over Brentford. Or you could not back Newcastle and you could back Brentford and you could bench Isak. But let's face it, you're definitely not going to do that. So, and I don't think you'd be right to either. I think Newcastle, they looked, Isak, from what I saw last night, looked probably back to his best, definitely. I thought he looked brilliantly.
He does look on form, and I'm confident he can score against Brentford at the weekend. So it may well be a hedge my bets, play Hall instead of Collins, and then transfer out Aït-Nouri for Gomez or another defender of some kind. If I make a defender move this weekend, I'm actually quite satisfied with the rotation over the next few game weeks, which is good because it then means I can roll the transfers to keep them there to address any problems that arise, such as suspensions or
Injuries.
long-term injuries.
Yeah. We shall see
what
you go with on next week's video.
Yeah, likewise. And yourself as well, if you go with a defensive transfer or if you go with a more attack-minded one, such as Stroll forward.
Need some news. Need some team news, which we probably won't get from Arteta. But again, it all hinges on Gabriel. If Gabriel was going to play and my other defender was and obviously I've got Gabriel and Hall, there's a chance that I'll take out Aït-Nouri as opposed to Mikalenko, because I think Aït-Nouri sort of run his race. I mean, no, saying that, he probably score a brace at the weekend, but I just feel like he's and get booked. But I just feel like he's an accident waiting to happen, and we just spent 2 or 3 episodes talking about making sure that you've got good bench cover and that sort of thing. And I know I've just brought and also just bringing Nick Jackson in. Now I've got 2 players in my team on 4 yellow cards, so it just makes sense that it might not be a good idea. But anyway, we shall see.
Yeah, so if this video has been helpful to you, please let us know in the comments, or let us know one way or another, whether that be on x.com/FPL Affairs, Fantasy Premier League FPL1 group on Facebook, YouTube at FPL Affairs, and the Spotify link at the bottom of Mixture of Random Letters and Numbers, which if I could change, I would, which means you probably actually can change them. I just don't know how to. It shows my technophobe strengths and so on. So yeah, good luck to all of you watching. Hope your evening is constructive and you get the points you need to make sure you've got a red arrow disappearing and a green arrow arriving. And all that's left to say is thanks for your input, Jack.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me, as always. Thanks for everybody listening, rambling on.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's some information in there somewhere. Yeah, like and subscribe, share with your friends.
Yeah.
Anything you can do to support the channel.
Yeah. And anything you want us to talk about in subsequent episodes. So all that's left for me to say is, before Jack steals the thunder at the end.
I won't do it this week.
Oh, really?
No,
I thought it was going to be like a winter like.
No, because I don't think you can. Because I was going to say roll where you can, but I don't think you can at the moment. I think it's I don't think you can. I think there's so much rotation and injuries and suspensions that to say it. Well, I think now we're at the point where you should have rolled where you could, and now you should be able to benefit from rolling. But I'll say it anyway if it makes you feel better.
Or you could change it to rotate when you can.
Rotate when you can. No, because you don't want any rotation. We don't want rotation. Rotation's a killer.
Well, rotate your own FPL team within that for the fixtures rather than... Anyway,
roll when you can.
So all that's left to say is keep your FPL affairs under wraps until after Saturday morning's deadline. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.